how much does assisted reproduction cost anyway? Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest hindrances to people even exploring the option. Well, don't worry, we're going to talk about it in this episode. What's up? I'm Corlendos Scott, an assisted reproduction attorney who's dedicated his entire practice to helping people grow their families through assisted reproduction. And I love walking people through thinking about the costs of the process. One recent story that comes to mind is how to avoid costs on the front end so that you don't end up paying more in time, money, and lost sleep in the back end. I represented a couple who had gone with a surrogacy agency to help match them with a surrogate. Well, the agency matched them with a surrogate, and it turned out that that surrogate didn't pass her screening process. The doctor didn't clear her to do the process. So the couple said, hey, agency, we need another surrogate. Well, they matched them again. And that surrogate failed her psychological evaluation. And at this point, the couple's frustrated. They're out of months of time and lots of heartache. And they say, we want a refund. And the agency said, sorry, did you read the fine print? No refunds. And they were out of thousands upon thousands of dollars. Well, thankfully, I was able to work with them and get that money back for them. But it's something that could have been avoided up front had they known what to look out for. So in this video, we're going to cover how much does assisted reproduction cost. We're going to look at what really are costs, and what do I mean by costs. We're going to look at how different surrogacy processes affect the cost. And also just know that in this video, I'm referring to ART, assisted reproductive technologies in general. I'll specify a lot of stuff around surrogacy, but this also applies to other types of assisted reproduction, whether you're doing IVF for yourself or you're looking for help of an egg donor or a sperm donor. So keep your ears peeled for whatever it is that applies to you. Now, contrary to popular belief, it's not just a matter of Corlendos. How much does it cost? You can't Jerry Maguire your way into this thing, show me the money. It doesn't work like that. It all depends. And while that's one of an attorney's favorite answers to give, it's kind of true because you're an individual and your situation is not the same as the person's situation beside you. So we have to look at the specifics of your situation, but let's talk about some of the things that can affect the situation. When we talk about cost, I have a broader definition of cost. They want to know dollars and cents. Corlendos, what's going to come out of my bank account? But I really think there are two types of costs. Sure, there's the financial cost, but there's also the emotional cost. Let's look at both quickly. On the financial side, there's a lot of factors. It depends on what state you're doing the process in. So different states have different premiums, so to speak, just like cost of living. It may be easier and cheaper to live in Alabama than it is in California or in one state versus another state. It affects both the cost of surrogacy and IVF for yourself. There's also the question of DIY versus DI with the help of a lot of other people. So one of the ways that people try to cut costs, especially with assisted reproduction and third-party donation and surrogacy, is by finding the donor or surrogate themselves. They say, we don't need an agency to help us. We'll go on, Craigslist or the classifieds or, God forbid, Facebook, and we'll find someone. So there are cost savings if you don't need for a company or what we call agency to connect you or link you with a donor or a surrogate, but we're going to get to how that could also cost you on the back end in a moment. But let's get into the second, and for me, the most important cost, the emotional cost. You can't put a price on peace of mind. So when I talk about peace of mind, there's really two ways that you can think about cost or expense. You can use professionals who may be more expensive, but you look at the financial cost of it and you only have to deal with it once. Or you can try to DIY or use non-credible professionals and you're crying throughout the whole process and maybe even looking at a failed process like the clients I mentioned at the beginning of the video. And you don't want that. You want the time that you're going through the process of growing your family to be an exciting time, not a time where you're biting your fingernails every single day and looking up at the ceiling trying to go to sleep at night because you just don't know how it's going to turn out. Now let's talk about how the types of surrogacy affect the cost of a surrogacy journey. So when I'm talking about surrogacy, there's different categories that you can really place a surrogacy journey into. For citizens in the US, you can think about international surrogacy arrangements, and this is where you would go abroad outside of the country to use the help of professionals or individuals to go through the surrogacy process. Now, any search on the internet will probably reveal that there are places around the globe that will help people undergo the surrogacy process for a cheaper price than you could in the States. But again, there are many flags that you should look out for. First of all, there's culture, there's language barriers, and really, there's the comfort of the system, knowing that there are laws in place to protect you while you go through the process. So while it could be cheaper to do it abroad if you're a US citizen, you also have to think about the other costs that come along with it. Then there's domestic surrogacy. There's surrogacy within the US. And even within the US, every state has its own laws around surrogacy. So the costs are going to be reflected in that, both in the way of the professional support you can get and in the cost of living and the compensation given to the surrogate. Before I cover this last surrogacy concept, I want to make sure you subscribe to our channel because I'm going to go in greater detail in other videos on the cost of surrogacy, where surrogacy is legal or illegal, and all sorts of other fun stuff. So go ahead, click the button, subscribe. Oh yeah, and while you're at it, hit the bell right beside it so you get alerts. And surrogacy is also separated by different cost categories. There's altruistic surrogacy and compensated or commercial surrogacy. In altruistic surrogacy, that kind of arrangement is where a surrogate carries the baby for a parent and she isn't compensated for what she does. She may have her expenses reimbursed, but she's not given a base compensation for doing the process. Compensated surrogacy is exactly what you think it is. It's when a woman is compensated for the act of carrying a baby for someone else. Of course, in a compensated surrogacy, it's going to cost more because the surrogate is being given money for the time, the effort, the inconvenience, the pain that she endures for the process. Whereas in altruistic, the surrogate isn't being compensated. Lastly, let's talk about some cost savers. Everybody wants to save some money, right? Every penny counts. So just so you know, there are ways to help you offset the cost of assisted reproduction. And again, this applies not only to surrogacy, but also the IVF process, even egg donation and sperm donation. Number one, there are some amazing companies out there that are giving people and their employees benefits for assisted reproduction. I think the last company I heard of was Facebook. I think that Apple is also doing it. You can do a quick Google search or reach out to your HR department at your job to find out if there are benefits for you undergoing assisted reproduction. Secondly, there are also financing options. There are some banks and some lenders that offer financing for people who need help with handling the costs financially for assisted reproduction. So be sure to look around because you do have options with assisted reproduction financing. Also, there are several nonprofit organizations that offer grants for people undergoing assisted reproduction, whether that's IVF for themselves or surrogacy or egg donation or anything like that. Make sure you reach out and find these nonprofit organizations because you have options. Listen, there's no dollar amount that you can place on the dream of growing your family. But like I always say, don't let that dream turn into a nightmare by not knowing how to do it the right way. And I've got something for you. I created a thing called the Surrogacy Roadmap. And if you want it, you can click the link below and get your hands on it for free. In the Surrogacy Roadmap, I walk you through the entire surrogacy process from dream to delivery and all the steps in between. So you'll know what to do first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, on and on, and you won't get lost. So click the link below, get your hands on the roadmap, and I'll see you in the next video.